what's important is that you always learn something that's going to help you in the job today. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on, is things that you can literally put into action today and make an impact on your income. I don't know if you're anything like me when I was new, but I would say most new reps have the same mentality. The idea of closing a customer was something I wasn't really super comfortable with, closing on people. Now, some people are, assertive and they get it, they understand the sales business, and they have no problem with it right out of the gate. But a lot of people have a little bit of an issue because, when I say close on somebody, it's like I'm doing something to somebody, I'm trying to get money from them, right? Well, what I learned is over time that closing is not something we do on people. It's closing we do something is something we do for people. One definition of closing is helping customers feel comfortable getting something that they already want. Okay, how do we know they want Cutco? Well, we know because, if it was free, would you think they'd use it? Of course they would. And in fact, in the closing process or throughout the presentation, you find out if they think they would use it and if they like it and if they want it, right? Just by asking the right questions. One of the things I just mentioned before we started the recording is I'm going to put up a three-part closing talk. This is literally a 90-minute closing message. One of the greatest all-time messages. If you want to learn how to close, you just take your time to watch this over. But I broke it into 3 parts, and it's a fellow named Ken Schmidt, and this is a person really who taught vector marketing how to close, like really how to do it. He was with the Cutco business way before vector marketing even existed, and it is brilliant. It's old school, but it is brilliant. And you'll learn things about the objection cycle, and it helps you understand this point about people definitely want the product, and he basically has proof. So it's not something we do to a customer, something we do for a customer. People have a hard time making decisions, just in general, especially when there's a possibility of a mistake. That's why people are unwilling to commit to relationships sometimes, right? Because they don't want to make a big mistake, right? So they just don't commit at all, which might end up being the mistake in the first place, right? People don't even want to commit sometimes to where they're going to go eat. I don't know, where do you want to go? I don't know, where do you want to go, right? Because they just are afraid to make a mistake that somebody else, and maybe it's not even a mistake for themselves. They're afraid to make a mistake that they think somebody else is going to be disappointed in, right? Picking a particular, for example, picking a particular restaurant to eat or whatever. So people have a hard time making a decision. So because of that, we've got to make sure our confidence in whether they should buy or not is very, very high, right? Presenting the price must be very confident when we learn how to present that price. So if you'll take good notes on this information, you're going to see some instant success. Okay, first thing is something you've probably heard in your advanced training, but it's a rule that people need to know about called the 10-80-10 rule. Basically means 10% of the people always buy. Maybe they're already Cutco owners, or their friend has it, they just know they want to buy it. And sometimes we get that. We had 2 phone orders in our office yesterday. Someone just doing phone time, and the people said when they heard it was Cutco, oh, you know what, I need something, and they just bought over the phone. 10% of the people are not going to buy no matter what. You're going to be offering flat screen televisions for free if they purchase a trimmer, and they're going to say no. That's just for whatever reason. It could be timing, could be who knows what. I think those people at a different timing in their life probably could be persuaded to actually buy, but it's okay to have 5 to 10% no sales. But 80% depends on us as a sales rep. And I know because there are reps out there who have 90 to 95% closing, and it's not luck. It's not that they accidentally run across the people. It's because they understand some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So that 80% depends on you. There's 3 things you need to help you make a sale. One is confidence. Do we expect people to buy? If we don't expect them to buy, they can tell. Even if it's subconsciously, they can tell. So we've got to create that expectation that this stuff is amazing, and it comes with experience. When you run across people who own Cutco, your confidence and conviction just gets so much stronger. And if you're new and you haven't run across people that bought Cutco from somebody else, or better yet, from you, what's really awesome is when people buy something from you and then you see them 3 weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, or a year later, and they just come up and they thank you so much for selling them Cutco. That really boosts confidence. But confidence also comes from memorizing the close. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish the 3 things. Confidence is number 1. Enthusiasm is second. Got to have a lot of excitement and energy for the product. That's going to transfer to them. I heard one time sales was defined as a transfer of enthusiasm, right? So your enthusiasm makes a difference. And then how you answer customers' fears, their objections, and their concerns. So confidence comes from memorizing the close. Those are things that really increase that confidence. Enthusiasm comes from talking to people who already own Cutco, getting some Cutco yourself and using it in your house. If you have a couple of good weeks and you have some money that you feel like you could invest in adding to your personal Cutco, I feel like you do that all the time. You get your own commission back on any sales that you make to yourself. But first thing I want to do is learn how to answer objections before they come up. Okay. So that there's objections or concerns at the end. It's too expensive. I wouldn't use all those knives, those kind of things. Well, I'm going to talk about a few of the top objections that people sometimes hear and talk about how to answer them before they come up. Then we're going to get less objections at the end. We still might get some, and that's totally natural and okay. But if we can answer them ahead of time and kind of get the customer to kind of eliminate that from their own mind before you get to the end, then it just makes that closing kind of easy. They answer those objections before they can even bring them up. Okay, so let's talk about my knives are fine, right? My knives are okay. My knives are good enough. That type of thing. Well, here's a couple of things you can do. They probably just didn't understand properly the disadvantages of common knives page, right? They didn't understand things about the wooden handles and the unsanitariness. Unsanitariness is not a word, but you get what I'm saying. So after that page, just do this. Do a thorough job on an old knives page, but just basically say this phrase at the end. Most people own their knives for anywhere from 8 to 10 to 15 years. But the funny thing is their knives stop working well after about 1 to 2 years. So they end up using dangerous, inefficient tools. Isn't it silly to use dangerous and inefficient tools in the kitchen, right? And get a commitment on that, okay? Isn't it silly to use dangerous, unsanitary, inefficient, ineffective tools in the kitchen? But here's one more line you can add at the end of or during that time. If you're going to start being safer in the kitchen and more sanitary in the kitchen, when's the best time to get started doing something like that? Right away, or to wait 5 or 10 years? Yeah, right away, of course, right? That helps answer the objection if I want to put it off, or I want to think about it. Okay, here's the objection: it's too expensive. So what they're telling you, if they say it's too expensive, is that they're telling you that the value does not equal the price, or the value is not greater than the price in their mind. Okay, so that probably means we need to do a better job in the features and benefits, where we're building the value of why Cutco knives cost more, and why it's worth it. Okay, so here's the phrase that pays. Okay, blank is more expensive than blank, but it's worth it because blank. Okay, blank is more expensive than blank, but it's worth it because blank. Okay, I'll give you an example on the features and benefits page. Thermoresin is more expensive than wood or plastic, but it's worth it because it resists melting, chipping, cracking, and breaking. Okay, so you see how blank is more expensive than blank, but it's worth it because blank, right? Learn how to use that, right? The double D edge is way more expensive to make than a regular straight edge blade or typical serrated edge blade, but it's worth it because it cuts so much faster, so much cleaner, and the points are there protecting the edge, so it lasts so much longer. So do you understand the phrase that pays, right? Use that 3 to 5 times at least. All right, I want to think about it, or not now, or I need to talk to my husband, or I need to talk to my wife, or whatever it is, right? Well, the way we can avoid I need to talk to my wife, by the way, is by not seeing single guys by themselves, or not single guys, but dudes alone, whether they're married or not. But first part of this, answering that objection, is our understanding that not now means never. Okay, not now means never. You should just ingrain that into your head. Now, I know there's going to be one person or two people out there that say, well, I had this one person that said they were going to buy later, and they actually did, right? Well, God bless you. Okay, thanks. You did that. That's great. But that's probably the worst thing that can happen is when you have somebody that tell you that they're going to buy later, and they do buy, because then that changes your belief to sometimes people buy later, right? And that sometimes, I guess we have to say sometimes, but it's so rare that you'll end up losing out on dozens and dozens and dozens of sales because that one person out of every 50 or whatever does actually get something later. Here's something you got to understand: an order for a peeler and a trimmer is better than a promise for a homemaker. Okay, it's called a silent salesperson. If they have a trimmer, and I recommend that Santoku trimmer, they have a trimmer in their house and they use that over and over again, they've got that silent salesperson in their house that helps them remember how great Cutco is, and the chances of them actually buying and upgrading to a set later goes way, way up. Okay. So you've heard the old saying, out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, the reverse of that is true as well. In sight, in mind, right? So when they're using their Cutco, it keeps it at the forefront of their mind. So if you have somebody that wants a big set, but they want to wait, go ahead and drop down all the way to the smallest thing they feel comfortable getting today, and then do an upgrade later, and just make sure they understand we're going to give them an amazing freaking deal on an upgrade. But the only way they can take advantage of first call bonuses is by buy now bonuses or first call specials, is by getting something today. Okay, so how do you answer the I want to think about it? First of all, you explain the first call special properly, making sure they completely understand it. And you don't have to tell them this part at the very beginning of the close, but once you're dropping down, it shows if you get anything today, you lock in those bonuses for the future, right? And you got to just make sure that it's very clear to them that the buy now bonus, and you want to uphold the integrity of the buy now bonus. You don't want to make exceptions to that, because there's nobody checking you. There's no buy now bonus police that are going to show up when you put in an order in Rollo if it's not the first time that they saw. This is just strictly an honor system. But I count on, and we all count on, all reps across the country to have honor in this program. We want to honor that first call special program. or buy now bonus. So when explaining the guarantee, and this is written in these notes, you know, Ms. Jones, one of the reasons I love working with this company is because this guarantee, it's the #1 guarantee in the industry. In fact, it's one of the top guarantees of any product anywhere, not just kitchen products. And what's great is it would be impossible to pressure someone into getting Cutco today. The reason it would be impossible is because after you receive the product, you get to try it out for 15 days. And if there's anything you don't like, you can get a full refund. You know, so for a rep to pressure someone would be a complete waste of time for both parties. So even when someone wants to think about Cutco, they can place an order with that, then try it out with no pressure whatsoever. Okay. So basically you're saying that there's no pressure because of the way the guarantee works. Okay. And you can even say this, and something you can remind them at the end. What I recommend, Ms. Jones, is people get the biggest set that they think they might use, and then try it out for a few weeks. And anything that they're not using, they can cherry pick and just keep the things that they like, and then we'll give them the money back for everything else, right? So people only pay for what you want to keep, okay? Or you only pay for what you want to keep, right? And so that kind of takes all the pressure off and lets them know that there's nothing that they can't lose, right? The guarantee, I call it the can't lose clause, the 15-day money back guarantee. And it also, if you are seeing a single wife or a husband by themselves, this is where you could ask the question about, can they make a decision on their own? Now, before you start talking about prices, if you talk about prices and then you start, and they bring up, well, I really need to talk to someone first. Now it feels like you're selling too hard a lot of times. Okay. Sometimes, okay. There's a way to do it without making it come across that way, and they don't usually feel it. It's us that feel it. So after that guarantee, we'll say, Ms. Jones, I know you're here, and you may talk to your husband before you make big important decisions that are going to affect the next 40 years of your life. But here's my question. If it turns out that, at the end we find a set that you're comfortable with, that you like, can you make a decision on that on your own? Or is it something that you always discuss with your spouse? Okay. Let me just ask the question. Don't say, can you buy it? I just say, make a decision. Can you make a decision on it? Without that, okay. And if they say, well, we usually talk about things, depending on how much it is, we'll say, okay, great. And the last thing we would want to do is create marital strife, Ms. Jones, or anything like that. So that's why we have this guarantee. Okay. So if you did place an order for something and you were using and it came in and your husband's like, whoa, what are you doing spending a bunch of money on something without letting me know about it? They said, well, I got the best deal possible by getting it right away. And we've got a 15-day unconditional money back guarantee. So we get to try it out, and you can use which ones you like, and you can see if you like it before we decide what we're going to keep. Okay. So you basically explain that guarantee. And you guys know there's only one reason why people don't buy Cutco. There's only one. Okay. It's because there's something they don't understand. There's something they don't understand. They just really don't understand how happy they're going to be 20 or 30 years from now. They really don't understand the guarantee. They really don't understand the buy now bonus. They don't understand how much happier they're going to be in their kitchen. There's just something they don't understand. And that's our job, is just to make sure that they understand everything about Cutco. Because if they do, everybody's going to buy it. I mean, it just makes total sense. It makes no sense to not go ahead and get something, at least to lock in the bonuses. What about the objection? It's too many pieces. Okay, that's too many knives. Well, what this probably means is we need to have more enthusiasm in the names and uses section. Okay, one way to do that is talk about, this is my favorite knife. Okay, if you watch me do a demo, you're going to hear me say that probably on every knife, unless I forget. Oh, this Perry knife is one of my all-time favorites, right? And it's called the air knife because we use it in the air. We go through and explain all the things about the Perry knife. Then we move to the trimmer. Now, Ms. Jones, if you ever catch yourself taking your Perry knife and using it on the cutting board because it's got that straight edge, stop yourself. Okay, put it down and reach for your trimmer. Okay, now the trimmer, this is one of my all-time favorites. Trimmer's really good for, and you get into what the trimmer's really good for. Okay, and then you do that. Now the trimmer's not very flexible. You really would want to use this knife to get peanut butter out of a jar or something like that. So that's why we have the spatula spreader. The spatula spreader, Ms. Jones, this is one of my all-time favorites. Okay, and you do it and you explain the spatula spreader, and you're going through the whole demo, and every time, by the time you've done it 4 times, you say, Ms. Jones, let me tell you something about the butcher knife. The butcher knife is one of my, guess what, all-time favorites. Okay, and then they catch on and they know, okay, they're all these all-time favorite. Right? So you want to paint really vivid pictures all throughout the names and uses. So the names and uses section, guys, I can remember when something that turned things around for me is when I was doing it. I wasn't selling a lot of sets. I sold a lot of Cutco games, and I did sell a decent amount of galley sets, but I didn't sell very many homemakers, especially in my early half of my career. But when I did start selling homemakers, I realized the reason is because I kind of made this recognition when I was doing names and uses one time, and that's a customer sitting there listening to me, or I thought they were listening to me. And I realized that I was bored doing the names and uses. And I thought to myself, holy cow, if I'm bored doing the names and uses, imagine how bored this customer is, So I just got more excited about the names and uses. And when you can get excited about every item in the set, you're going to get more big orders. right? I can remember a fella that I had as a rep. He sold spatula spreader, spatula, 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 no sale, spatula, 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 no sale, right? And there was like 6 or 7 spatulas in a row and 2 no sales. And I brought him in because this was a really sharp guy too. And I'm like, and he had good, really good initial names list of people to see. I brought him in and I said, hey, and I said, man, what's going on? You're selling lots of spatula spreaders. He goes, I love the spatula spreader. It's awesome. This is the one that I use all the time at home. And he just started telling me how excited he was about the spatula spreader. And I said, dude, are you even halfway excited about the other knives as you are about the spatula spreader? And he goes, well, no, not really. And I said, well, we got to up that, right? Why don't you, instead of getting excited about individual pieces, get excited about the set. If you say you're as excited about the homemaker as you are saying you've been excited about that spatula spreader, you're going to sell yourself a lot more sets, right? He went out and he sold a starter set the next demo, a galley set the next demo, and a homemaker the next demo. Because his enthusiasm got increased. Objection: I can't afford it. Okay, let's talk about this one. Okay, first of all, that is your belief has to be strong that 90% of the people that you're seeing, probably 100%, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt to a few here and there. 90% of the people that you see can be buying Cutco. Okay, you need to understand this. Because a $400 order split into a 5-way, that's $80 a month plus tax. Okay, $80 a month, that's $20 a week. And most people waste $20 a week, at least on just trivial stuff, right? If you have 20 bucks in your pocket and you go to the mall, you could very easily leave the mall with no money, maybe a little bit of change in your pocket and nothing to show for it. Maybe because you got a big cookie, you got lemonade, you got a hot dog on a stick, or something like that. Just observe people, how much money people spend on things that aren't really vitally important in their life. Yes, people spend 20 bucks a week on coffee a lot of times. Now, some people might say, well, coffee is vitally important, right? I got my coffee, my Utopian right here. And some people say, well, I can't live without my coffee. Well, they could probably, but there's other things that they spend their money on. Go to the fair and watch the amount of money that people are spending just on stuff, right? That's one of the things that's great about our fair and show team. Is they're really good at being able to point out to people how much money they spend at the fair, because they're just in an environment, a buying environment, and they spend money on all these foreign products that they're going to probably never even use or use once or twice, or they're going to end up throwing away when they could buy Cutco, American made, guaranteed forever. I mean, you can't get anything better for your money than Cutco, right? So I know if people spend a bunch of money on Cutco, maybe even a little bit, strain themselves a little bit, well, all that means is there's less money that they have available to waste on trivial stuff that they're not going to get any value out of. So either you're completely seeing the wrong people, or you are not comfortable with the price. That's usually most reps' issue, right? Guys, someone who smokes cigarettes regularly, they buy a Homemaker Plus 8 every 4 to 5 months, okay? Someone who's a heavy smoker. And someone who's a light smoker buys a Homemaker set at least every year. Just because you can't afford a BMW or Mercedes doesn't mean a BMW or Mercedes is a bad value, or a Lexus or something like that, right? People value different things, okay? And everybody has something that they're willing to spend a little bit more money on than they have to, because that's important to them, right? Some people, it's their glasses, right? They buy designer glasses, or they pay for the upgraded lenses that screen out the UV rays because they feel like they're protecting their eyes. Some people it's cars, some people it's clothes, some people it's shoes, some people it's kitchen appliances, some people it's their furniture. But pay attention. That's one of the questions you can ask people about early on when you say good things aren't cheap and cheap things aren't good, Miss Jones. If it were cheap, you wouldn't like it. If it were cheap, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't be comfortable representing it. Do you understand that philosophy? And you say, yeah. And just say, Miss Jones, what I found that everybody has certain things that they're willing to spend a little bit more money than the minimum on, because there's certain things that people value. Like for me, Ms. Jones, it's sunglasses, or you mention something, but for me, it's tennis shoes, right? Because I play a lot of sports and I know I need shoes. And if I don't pay more for my shoes, I'm going to have back problems and knee problems in the future. What do you have in your life that's like that you spend a little bit more money on? Okay. And get that out there, right? Some people, it's cornflakes, they don't buy the generic cornflakes because they buy the brand name cornflakes because you know why? They're better. They're so much better, right? Crackers, right? I spent the time trying to buy the cheap crackers and everything, and I was disappointed every time. Almost every time I buy something that's cheap, I'm highly disappointed in it. And your customers are exactly the same way. They're disappointed when they buy cheap things. And it's important to make sure that this is all part of the conversation, right? Oh, there's one other reason why people might say that they can't afford it. It's because you, the rep, or we have not memorized the close. And if we haven't memorized the closing part, then we don't come across very confident. Okay, so always start with the 3-set close, the ultimate, or the complete set, family set, homemaker set. Because if you start with the ultimate and you get that price out there, $2,600 to $2,900, everything else doesn't sound like as much money just because we started at a bigger number. Okay, so start with a big number. Some people will buy that complete set, but more importantly, it raises the average order of everything else, right? If you've been starting at a homemaker and your average order is 250, well, if you start with the Ultimate and Siggy, your average order size is going to go to about 350, 400, right? Just from starting at a higher spot, because of what goes on in the customer's mind and because people need to be asked more than once to purchase things. So after you've handled the objections, then you've got to be confident when you close. Once you've answered all the objections during the demo, that confidence is key. I probably said that 10 times if I've said it once in this talk. This comes from memorizing the close, just like you memorize the referral approach, that creates confidence. Memorizing the close creates confidence. You should be so confident when closing it, you can look that customer right in the eye and act like you spend $2,000 on lunch, okay? That $2,000 is something that people spend all the time. And it may seem like a ton of money to you, but I can tell you this, when you get to be an FSM, and sometimes you make $2,000 in a week, right? Have a solid week at $4,000, you make $2,000 in a week. It's going to be a lot easier for you to sell big orders because you are making the kind of money that a lot of your customers are making. In fact, you're making more money than a lot of the customers are making, because you understand the value of, or why buying quality things. And by the way, this whole concept of buying things that are quality instead of buying things that are cheap, I hope you internalize this. And when you shop for things, that you are willing to spend a little bit more on, not on everything, but there's a lot of things out there that if you spend more on, you're just going to be happier with the purchase, and it's going to be more economical in the long run as well. Now you're still going to get some objections at the end of the demo from time to time, but if you follow all these things that we learned today, you're going to get them a lot less often. When you do get an objection, learn how to handle that properly using the objection cycle. Talk to your manager about the objection cycle. And there's 3 words I'd like you to write down: feel, felt, and found. Okay, feel, felt, and found. If you can learn how to use what's called the feel, felt, found closing cycle and how to use that properly, that's a whole talk on its own practically, but I'll give you the 90-second version or less. And that is this: if someone gives an objection, well, I just don't really feel comfortable spending that much money, or whatever it is, then you can use the feel, felt, found. And the feel, felt, found brings in a third party, or brings in yourself. Because I can understand exactly how you feel. Right there was the first feel, right? And so several of my best customers felt exactly the same way before they decided to go ahead and get Cutco, because what they found is, and then you answer with some objection. Okay, what they found is Cutco's like a magic tank of gas, right? If you went down to the gas station and you filled up your car with gas, and let's say it's one of those old school places where you pay after they fill it up. Normally that's not the case, but you fill it up and the little attendant comes out to you and says, okay, that's going to be $2,000, right? You'd be like, $2,000? What's going on? That's way too much money, for a tank of gas. And they said, okay, no problem, we'll take it out. But just so you know, it's called the Forever Gas, and it's guaranteed to last the lifetime of this car. You can even take it out of this car when you sell the car, and you can put it into a new car, and it'll last the lifetime of that car as well. Okay, you got 15 days to try it, to see. Drive as much as you want for the next 15 days. If you don't feel like you're getting the value out of the gas, bring it right back in. We'll take all the gas out and give you 100% of your refund back. Okay, so when people start to realize the value that way, Miss Jones, a lot of people went ahead and decided to go ahead and get it. I mean, does that make sense? Okay, and when you say, does that make sense, you just kind of see if you can get some agreement there, and maybe you reclose on the whatever you were closing on. Maybe you bring in a trade-in special, or maybe you bring in a builder set, or you bring in something like that, or you talk about the investment option, or you drop down. Okay, but you do that before you ask them a new question. Okay, by the way, just asking, would you like to go ahead and get this homemaker set? That's a question. If you say, would you like to go ahead and get this homemaker set on a 5-way? That's a different question that could get you a different answer. Okay, so when you're asking people to buy, you're not actually asking the same thing over and over. Do you want to get a homemaker set? No. Okay, well, do you want to get a homemaker set? Well, no. Do you want to get a homemaker set? No. You're asking different questions. Every time you drop down to a different set, you're asking a different question. Every time you offer something different for free, you're asking a different question, right? So different questions can get you different answers. So it's really important to always go through that. All right, so that is it for today's message. I've got some more good stuff coming at you in the next several workshops. Hopefully you got some nuggets. I'm going to turn off the recording.